Having an exceptional relationship with your spouse affects every single aspect of your life and is crucial for experiencing your dream life together. I'm Rob Murgatroyd.
And I'm Kim Murgatroyd. Listen in on our honest, filter-free conversations as we navigate life and business together without killing each other.
You'll learn by osmosis how to transform the friction you feel in your relationship into a purposeful foundation that will allow you to grow together.
Welcome to the Friday Podcast.
Kimberly, Manifestation Murgatroyd, how are you? Why do you have a camera in my face?
Hey, aren't you that guy on TikTok?
Are you that guy on TikTok? How are you doing this morning?
I am Ducky. I'm actually really excited to talk about what we're talking about today because it's one of my favorite subjects.
Okay, tell me about it.
So this is the final in our series of creating your vision, right? We've been doing this ultimate vision series, and this is number 5. This is manifestation, but I'm going to tell you in advance, we have a little bonus for you, which is going to be our next episode. We have a bonus episode where we're going to talk about one more topic that we've actually recently added to our course. And that's once you get the vision, what do you do?
By the way, this is really important and relevant to this. Do you know what the number one song when I was a DJ, no matter what you did, if you had the worst night in the world, when you pulled this out, your night changed?
What was it?
The next episode. Da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, yeah. Nice. So back to this episode. So today we're going to talk about manifesting. In our bonus episode, we're going to talk about how to reverse engineer the vision you created. So I know we've said it's going to be a 5-part series. We're adding a 6th. That's just how we roll. So today we're talking about manifestation. And this is one of those topics where if you believe in it, you believe in it. If you don't, you think it's a bunch of bullshit, people thinking happy thoughts sitting on the couch waiting for a pile of money to show up. And the reality is it's somewhere in between, right? You're not sitting your ass on the couch doing absolutely nothing, dreaming about the pile of cash. And you also can't be with a shitty mindset and just walking through life complaining your way into a new reality, because that's not going to happen either. So what we want to talk about today is what we did to help speak into existence the visions that we created for our life, both when we were trying to move to California and then when we created this Italian vision. And the first thing on that list, and that I think is the most important, what we did, Rob, when we were living in Atlanta and moving to California and selling the clinic, we kind of did naturally because we weren't really in this deep dive into manifestation and stuff like that. Like we knew about it and we had read some books, but we weren't really like following anything. It wasn't until we got to California where things clicked. And I remember I was listening to an Esther. I remember exactly where I was. I was walking to the park at the very beginning of COVID to meet you, or maybe it was before COVID, actually. You were in the park with Sophia, and I was crossing the PCH on my way to the park. And she said, don't do affirmations to raise your vibration. That's not going to work. And it triggered me to think about, we had this friend, and this friend used to wake up in the morning and yell into the mirror her affirmations. Do you remember this? Do you know what I'm talking about? She would get up and she like wanted her life to change so bad. She was like, I get up and I go in the mirror and I'm like, you are beautiful. And she's yelling into the mirror her affirmations. And I think a lot of people fall into that category where they're trying to use affirmations to raise their vibration, but that's actually the opposite of what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to raise your vibration first, then do the affirmations. Otherwise, it's not working. When you feel less than and you're going, you are beautiful, and you're like crying, that's not working out. So in manifestation, everything we're going to talk about today comes from the perspective that first you need to be in an elevated vibration, right? What does Joe say about you need an elevated vibration? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you need a clear vision, but elevated emotion. Yeah.
So clear vision, elevated emotions. And we didn't even know that until recently that Joe said that. And that is exactly what we would do. When we talk about the story, how I went to yoga and I joke and I say my yoga mat told me we should sell the clinic. I went to yoga I did a 90-minute class, which elevated my vibration, elevated my emotion, and it cleared my brain. So what could come to me, whether it's the thought, the nudge, however you want, the inspired action, and that came to me with a clear brain, an elevated emotion, a vision on what we wanted. And I came home and I was like, hey, Rob, we got to sell the clinic. And that was the inspired action that took us to achieving our vision. And so that process is what we want to break down today.
Yeah, I think before we go into this, as you're describing that process, and I'm thinking through other things that we've done that fall into this category, they've all had one magic formula in place, and that was the elevated emotion was there because we chose a vision that we were excited about. I certainly know I've done this, and I'm sure people listening have done this as well, where you put together a vision. And I know this is about manifestation, but I just want to reiterate the point that if you're having trouble having an elevated emotion as you're speaking about, this is the time to reevaluate your vision and to look at it and say, did I choose something that's logical? Did I choose something that makes sense for me to do intellectually? I'm a lawyer, and so I'm going to be now a legal consultant, versus I really want to be, a dentist, an ice skater, whatever it is. And I think really getting in touch with the vision, Woody Allen had this quote, 90% of success is showing up. And I think that 90% of this is having something that truly floats your boat, something that truly excites you. Because for us, I was extremely excited about going to California. So having the elevated emotion, the idea that I could put my feet in the sand and walk down the beach and jump on a surfboard and learn to surf, you were extremely excited about the idea of walking on cobblestone streets, being in Italy. So it wasn't difficult to have that elevated emotion associated with the vision.
What you're saying, though, is you're talking about the vision with the elevated emotion. You have to elevate your emotion before you start. What you're talking about is envisioning, where you're envisioning the life and you're like an athlete watching themselves, a mental rehearsal. But you have to be in an elevated emotion before you begin that mental rehearsal. You can't have your vision bring you up, because you could easily have a shitty day, come home and look at a vision board of Italy and go, oh, there's no way this is ever happening. And that could bring you into lack. My point is, in the point of manifestation, from everyone from Dispenza to Esther to everyone, is that you have to be in an elevated emotion. And that comes from gratitude. That comes from exercise. That comes from watching a funny movie. That comes from meditation, getting your body into an elevated emotion before you begin that visualization. And then you're right. Yeah, it has to excite you. And your vision, as we talked about before, needs to be emotional. It needs to be exciting. It needs to spark something inside you that makes you want to just jump through the vision board and go into it and visualize it. And so that's what this is all about. That's the point. You're not using the vision board to raise your vibration. You have to raise your vibration and then go through the processes we're going to talk about today to speak it into existence. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I think we're saying the same thing in two different stages. One is before you get to the point of looking at your vision, you've got to be in an elevated state. Otherwise, your vision is going to seem unobtainable and not realistic, and you're going to be pissed off that you don't have it. So you can't use the vision to get the elevated emotion. You got to get the elevated emotion before that. So if that's the case, then how does the person who doesn't have an elevated emotion and is feeling unhappy about their life, how do they manufacture an elevated emotion when they're not quite feeling so elevated?
They don't manufacture it. That's what we're about to talk about. So there's many ways that you can do it. The first one is gratitude. You struggled with this a lot when we were trying to get to California. You didn't like where you were in your career. You didn't like where you were going into the clinic. You didn't like managing the clinic. You were pissed about it all the time. And we learned that you need to be grateful for what you have and excited about where you're going. And so sometimes people think, if I'm too grateful for what I have, I'm going to keep getting more of this, right? Life A. And if I'm not grateful for it and I'm grateful for where I'm going, then let's say you want to move to Italy. And so that's like us, that was on the vision board or wherever it is. And you're only excited about where you're going, but you're grumpy and complaining and all of that where you currently are. It's never going to happen. I think you slowed down your progress of this because you were so not living in a state of gratitude for what you had. And it's not like you were in hell. You weren't doing manual labor on the side of the road. You were working in a medical office, making good money. You were just over it. And once you hit the point where you were able to find gratitude in your clinic, where you were able to work out the schedule so it allowed you to do the other things you wanted to do, where you redesigned your office in the clinic to make you feel a certain way. Once you were able to do those things and find the gratitude in the clinic and get excited about where you were going, which is selling it and moving to California, that's when the things changed for you.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What I'm trying to do is put myself back in the place of where I was at that time so we can help people who are in that situation. And there's two things that come to mind. One, you touched on a second ago, which is redesign the office. I need to unpack that for a second. I was in my office feeling dead inside because after 25 years of hearing my neck and back hurts, I was going to shoot myself if I heard it another day. I was just bored. And I needed something every time I opened that fucking door, back door in my office, and it creaked and the handle didn't work. And I walked inside and my staff was sitting in my office. The door to the outside would open up and they would be standing there and they would look at me. I had all these triggers where I was like, I just hate this. And it felt like Groundhog's Day and it wasn't changing. So I knew that I needed something to shake it up so that I can step into the gratitude. And what I did was I ripped up the floors in my office and I put beautiful mahogany type looking wood, painted the wall this crazy cool red color, bought like a Buddha, dimmed the lighting, put recessed lights at the top. And I love to whiteboard things. So I took the far wall that's opposite my desk and I bought whiteboard paint and I made the wall a whiteboard painted wall. And what that did was that allowed me a space, and I got a Spotify subscription and I put like different music in there than the office was playing. So when you walked into my office, you heard chill jazz. When you walked into the main room where I was seeing patients, it was doctor's office music. And what that allowed me to do was mostly on my lunch breaks, it would allow me to sit in that space and dream and whiteboard and feel different, feel excited about it, feel grateful, have gratitude. That was the first step in me finding a way out of that because I had an environment that excited me, that I was grateful that I had. And I went from hating going to the office to not loving going to the office, but enjoying being in my office room within my office I didn't love.
And so that's how you found the way to be grateful for what you have and excited about where you're going.
And I still love that. And I even had them build me a desk. I had a woodworker build a desk in there for me that I freaking loved. I wanted to take it to Italy. I still miss it. And I miss that room. It was a beautiful room. I think the point of this is if you're in a situation where you're feeling like you want to move to the next vision in your life, the next chapter in your life, the next thing that you want, and you feel stuck.
And you find yourself complaining about it and staying in that horrible spot.
See if there's a way that you can, Tony Robbins calls it scoring the situation, like a musical score for a movie makes a movie better with the music. Find a way that you can score your life, score an environment in your life. That's one. Two is Lori Harder had a really good one. We had a conversation one night about this. And she said, when I'm feeling stuck, I know that gratitude is the answer, but sometimes I just don't want to be very grateful. And I'm laughing because she says it funny. She said, I walk around my house and I start looking around and I'm like a crazy person. I start picking up my pencil and I go, I am so grateful for this pencil. It allows me to write. I look at the candle. Oh my God, this candle I can use when I meditate. I look at my books. I have so many books that if I wanted to sit here and read, and I look at my clothes, and she walks around her house and she's intentionally saying and doing weird and crazy things that catch her eye in her environment to train her brain to look for the good, to try and stop the noise of the negative.
I like to do that on a walk. I like to go for a walk here in Italy. I'll walk down the street and I'll see a nonna, like a grandmother, holding a little baby's hand. And I know that the parents are at work and she picked the little baby up at school. And to me, that's just such a beautiful relationship, and it shows the connectedness in the community and the families here. And so I look and I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful that this little girl has this time with her nonna. And then I look over and I see the market and I'm like, oh gosh, the amount of fruit and vegetables that are within 5 kilometers of here that are non-GMO, that are held to a really high standard, that are inexpensive. I'm so grateful I have that in my life. And I look and I literally play the gratitude game as I walk. Look, exercise is raising the vibration too. So when you're moving your body and you're practicing gratitude, for me, that's the double whammy. That's why, Rob, when you used to come home and I'd be so frustrated with whatever was happening and you'd be like, go for a walk. That's what I would do. I'd go for a walk and I'd either listen to a book or I'd do the gratitude game, but that would change my vibration and I always came home better. And so you have to find what it is for you that puts you into a different energy, puts you into a different vibration, puts you into gratitude. And this is a practice. You can sit here and listen to me and go, this is bullshit. I mean, if I'm struggling at work and blah, 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 I don't want to be grateful. Well, then you can sit in your pile of poo and your life isn't going to change. But if you want to commit to changing your life, then you have to start. Nobody has ever complained their way out of their current reality. That has never been the case. So if you want to change your reality and you want to step into the vision that you've created for your life, you need to change.
I also think there's little things that you can do too. None of this is rocket science. Kim talked about going for a walk, but if you're somebody that was like into fitness at one point in your life, there's never been a time where I've ever met anybody who's left the gym and said, I wish I didn't go. It changes your state. It's like a chemical change to your state. So things like that. And also there's a concept called zapta tolerations. And it's like, what are the things that you're tolerating in your life? Like, I'll give you an example. I've got like a weird shoulder injury. So I just went and had PRP done yesterday where they take the plasma and they inject it. Because it's one of these things where I go throughout the day and I like go to reach something and I feel this pain in my shoulder. It's not terrible. I'm not going to die from it. But every time I have that movement, it pisses me off. And I'm like, there goes that shoulder again. So it's a toleration. It's something I'm tolerating. Look around in your life and go, where are the areas that I'm tolerating so that you don't just slip back into this negativity?
All right. I'm going to give you a couple of resources right now that can help. So get a pad and paper, pause the podcast, whatever you got to do. But I'm going to give you some resources that can help you. And this is a lot of what Rob and I used when we were in California specifically, and it was the pandemic, and it was all the insanity around that entire almost 2-year process. There was a lot of stress, a lot of freaking out, a lot of time in the house trapped. And that was a time that we really, really had to dig deep to practice what we preach and to find ways to change our vibration. What we found personally is by consistently surrounding ourselves with things of a higher vibration. So we turned off the news and we turned on Esther, Abraham Hicks. So go on YouTube or just type in Abraham Hicks and there's 10 million audios from live events she's done. And we took them and Rob created a playlist out of them. And we have it and we just would wake up in the morning and while I was brushing my teeth, I would put on a random Abraham Hicks and I would get little nuggets and then I'd send it to Rob and he'd listen, or he'd wake up first and listen to one and send it to me and then we'd talk about it. And then like we did everything we could to stay in that high vibration. So we used Abraham Hicks. Rob loves the Headspace app. I was diving into Gabby Bernstein books and any like spiritual manifestation book I could get my hands on. I had learned about music frequencies. And so I was listening to music when I was working. I would type into YouTube music for creativity, or something like that. And I would listen to that music. And now I think that actually that music is on the New Calm app that we use. We started TM and we did a lot of meditation. I feel like Rob and I were like, I'm going to go meditate for 30 minutes. And then I'd come out and he'd be like, okay, I'm going in. And then we would just constantly trade off because we felt like that was one of the things that really helped the most and kept us going. Also, if you're new to meditation, what I did, because Rob's been meditating for a long time, and I was the person that was for sure I can't meditate, I can't sit, my mind keeps wandering. TM helped me understand that you're not meant to not think. Those thoughts coming up, you're just not meant to put your energy and focus on them when they come up, but they're little thought bubbles that release stress. So as the thought pops up, you let it come in and you let it go away, but you just don't focus on it. And it's okay because that's a stress relief. That's what TM taught me. But then on the other side of it, I used Gabby Bernstein's meditations, and you can buy them. She has them on her website, or sometimes if you buy the book, in the book, she gives you a link. Like there's one meditation she has, like when shit's hitting the fan, it's this meditation where she has like an angel coming and taking all your problems away. And it's just little things like that was filling our toolbox with tons of tools to keep us in a positive vibration, drowning out the noise, turning off the news, swiping past the drama, and choosing joy, choosing to stay in a high vibration, choosing to look at the positive. And that's literally what we did to survive. I know, Rob, you've done the 5-minute gratitude journal. Actually, Sophia and I were doing a gratitude journal that we bought on Amazon because she needed this too. She was getting stressed and anxious and angry. And I knew I needed to change her energy. And so every day she and I together started this gratitude journal, and I was like, let's fill it out. She came up with the idea of let's divide the page in half and let's both fill it out. And so we started answering questions and doing it together. And she was learning about what I was grateful for and vice versa, which was so powerful. And so during that pandemic experience, when we did this and we're dividing this paper in half, and this journal wasn't built for that, we together created a journal that allowed us to each take turns in practicing what we were grateful for within one journal. And it was such a connection piece. And so we created that, and we now sell it on Amazon. These are the real tools in our life that we use to stay in a high vibration. Because I think a lot of people go, yeah, well, it's easy for you because your life is so great. Yeah, no, it's not always great. And we have to fight the fight like everybody else. And we have to struggle through a lot of contrast to find what we want as well and to make things happen. But that's what we do. What do you have?
Well, I think when you're trying to manifest something, if you have this vision for what it is that you want and you're trying to step into manifesting that vision, you can't do it as the same person, because if you do it as the same person, you would have had it. So the person you are is not the person who can get that manifestation. The person you are has to change in order for you to become someone new that would attract it. Mm-hmm. What the hell does that mean? That means that you have to identify who that person is. How does that person think? What does that person do on a daily basis? And you started alluding to some of those things, which is that person is probably meditating. That person's probably not watching the news so much. That person's probably exercising. That person is probably listening to binaural beats, is probably walking, is probably doing new comms when they need to. And I think making a list of who that person is, almost like at first you've got to distance this new person from yourself and say, okay, if I look at it almost like I'm building another person, like not a Frankenstein, but I'm old enough to remember the $6 Million Man. I view it as I'm creating another person. And what are the elements of that person? And then when I write those elements out, I think you got to Arnold Schwarzenegger this. I think you got to do the reps. And I think you got to look and go, okay, so if this person is meditating, how many days a week is the person meditating? This person's probably getting up in the morning and meditating. Okay, what does that look like? Well, there's 100 different things. Now you got to start testing them. Let's try Headspace. Let's try Calm. Let's try TM. Let's try Joe Dispenza. So which one works for you? We know the person is meditating, but we don't know which flavor of it is yet. So you experiment and say, okay, Monday I'm going to try this. Tuesday I'm going to try that. And then once you identify the one that excites you and feels great, then I make a list I call the minimal effective dose. What are the things that I need to do for this person? Another example that's unrelated to meditation would be family. There's a quote I read: a fit body, a calm mind, and a house full of love, these things cannot be bought. They have to be earned. And I love that because what you're doing is you're identifying what are the things that you need to do in order to have the right mindset to manifest. If you have a bad relationship with your spouse, the negativity of that relationship is going to be so loud that you've got to address that before you can step into the manifestation. What does it look like to have a good relationship? In our case, we take Fridays. Today's Friday, so we're going to spend our day together, right? I have Super Sophia Saturday on Saturday because I want to be able to manifest these things in my life. I have to make sure that the totality of my life is cleaned up. I don't want the noise of me so focused on manifestation of my vision that I'm ignoring my relationship. I'm ignoring being a dad. I'm ignoring my body. It's all interconnected. All these things you have to identify for your life. What are the things that you need to put continual momentum into? Maybe what are the things you got to say no to? What are the things you got to say yes to? What would this person do who's going to be able to manifest these things? And what are the actual action items I need to do? And I like to hold myself accountable. So I use Jerry Seinfeld's X system. He's got a thing where he just takes a printed calendar, puts it on the wall, and every time he writes for, I think it's an hour or 2 hours, whatever, he puts an X on it. And he doesn't want to break the chain. So he's going 15 years now where he's never broken the chain, where every day he puts another X in because it's something that's important to him. And he knows that one X that he's not writing, and then he starts feeling bad, and then things start going south. So I think you got to identify what these things are and then hold yourself accountable. It's one thing to have a conversation listening to this podcast about meditation, but if tomorrow morning you don't wake up and meditate, then what the hell's the point? It's not going to help you.
Right. And you got to start, like you said, you have to find what works for you. And we've dived into many different versions using many different resources about raising the vibration. I like that. A fit body, a calm mind, and a house full of love. On that note, there were things that we did that I think shifted everything. So once we realized like we need to be practicing gratitude, we need to be in a high vibration, we need to be exercising, we need to be taking care of everything. One thing we did and how we, I think, spoke this into existence is every night you and I would get a glass of wine after dinner, sit down, and we would look at our vision board. And it was really easy because we posted it in the kitchen. And I know we've talked about this before, but it's worth repeating. Originally, when we made vision boards back in the day, before we had this clarity on what actually worked, we would make these random boards, looked like Jeffrey Dahmer made it. We'd put it in the bathroom. We'd put it in the closet. The intention was I'm in the bathroom all the time, so I'm going to see it all the time. Or same with the closet. Like I had this walk-in closet and I was like, I'll see it all the time. The subconscious thing, though, was that you were hiding it. And I think subconsciously, when you take your vision board and you hide it in the bathroom, you hide it in the closet, you're not wanting someone to see the vision you have for your life because it makes you uncomfortable for whatever reason.
It's interesting. There's almost like a reverse shame in there.
There's a shame in wanting more, right? Or unveiling what you really want.
Or maybe just simply that if I put this up and I don't do it, then you're going to get the negativity from somebody going, oh, that $17 million house on your board, good fucking luck with that, with this economy.
Exactly. And so what we did when we shifted everything, we created our vision. Literally every step in this course that we created is what we did. So we created the joint vision. We created the written vision. We created the vision board and we put it up in our kitchen. And so every night after dinner, we'd sit with a glass of wine and we'd look at the vision board. And we would talk about it as if it was happening tomorrow. Rob would look at the board and go, I really love that coffee shop. Do you think that they have a chai latte? Because you like chai lattes. And we would just talk about it. And he would look at the surfing and he's like, I'm so excited to surf. Our dinner time was 3 hours later than Pacific time. So Pacific time, they're still working. So he would pick up the phone and call surf shops and ask about wetsuits and how long a board should be. And he would just ask questions as if he was going there tomorrow to purchase one. And we would open Zillow. This was something we did often. We'd open Zillow and start looking for rentals that were available and that were in our price range and kind of figuring it out. And it was something that we did that was fun. It connected us. And we were feeling good. We had a great family dinner. We're sitting with a glass of wine. We got a little jazz on. And we're literally talking about this life that's about to happen. And I'll tell you something funny. I remember the first time the maintenance man walked in to fix the sink. And he looked up and he was like, "What's that? What is this random thing of California?" And I said, "We're going to move." And he goes, "When are you moving?" I was like, "Soon." And I didn't give a date. I was like, "Soon, eventually, we're going to move there." And I was like, okay. And then our neighbor Kitty came over, saw the board, and she was like, "Wait a minute, you're moving?" And we were like, well, that's going to be the next phase of when we're going. And then it began, oh my God, they're moving.
And the irony is she moved to California before we did.
Yeah. And, so there's all of these little things that when you put the board out and when you are constantly talking about it, you're literally speaking it into existence. And we did the same thing with the Italy board. We were looking up rentals in Italy with rooftops, and we were looking up schools and all kinds of things.
I'll tell you what it does. When I was calling the surf shop, it made it that much more real for me.
Yeah.
It made it feel like I was actively involved in it. In the same way that if you know that you're going to the Caribbean next week and you pull your luggage out and you start putting clothes in the luggage, you know you're going to the Caribbean. You know you're packing for a trip. When you call a surf shop and you start having a conversation about wetsuits and educating yourself on it, you just know it's a matter of time before you're going to buy the wetsuit and jump into the ocean and learn how to surf. It's that next step from the foam board that the picture is hanging on in your kitchen to you getting in the water. It's that in-between step that allows you to get lost in the conversation. They're all steps, right? First it's like the idea comes in your minds, and then the idea, turns into pictures, and then the pictures turn onto a board, and then the board gets into the kitchen. And then when it's in the kitchen, the conversation begins at night where you're talking about it. And then your subconscious works, and then you start asking questions. And the questions are like, well, I don't know how to surf. I need an instructor. Are there suits that people wear when they surf? Whenever I watch Hawaii Five-0, they were in just board shorts. But the Pacific, anytime I've been in it, has been freezing. I guess they wear like surf suits, or what is it? So I had to call and go, hey, I'm going to be moving to California, and I just want to understand, in this area here, what do you wear when you surf? You got a 3/4, you got a 4/4 inch, you got a 5. Oh, okay. How much are they? Do you wear that all year round? No, you wouldn't wear that. You need a summer suit. Oh, what's a summer suit? That's where it's much lighter and it comes down to your knees and your arms are exposed. Oh, so there's different ones? Yeah, you probably need 2 or 3 of them. Okay. What kind of surfboard would I need as a beginner? A big one or a small one?
No, I was just going to say, people always say, step into it like it's my current reality. What you're talking about is the way to get it to become your current reality, because you're actually going through and vetting it. So it's sort of like we just launched a How to Move to Italy course that we were blown away with how many people bought it. All of those people, whether they're moving to Italy tomorrow or in 5 years, they are stepping into that next reality by taking the course and figuring out what documents are needed and how they're going to ship their stuff and what are all the logistics around it. And that is exactly how you step into that next reality. And that's how you begin to speak this into existence. And what do you have now? You have, I'm staying in a high vibration. I'm doing my best to mitigate the negativity of the world and keep myself in a high vibration. And if I find myself dipping and going into fear and lack and those negative emotions, I'm pulling myself out of it by going into meditation and gratitude and exercise and all of those things. And I'm making that a priority. I'm putting my board in a public place. I'm reading my vision. Rob used to read our vision to me at night. He'd read the vision and we'd look at the board. He'd read it out loud. We'd look at the board. And we'd create conversation.
And that also helped clarify it.
Yeah.
Because there were times where I read it, and as it was coming out of my mouth, there was something that didn't feel right.
Right. And you're always editing. And so we would do that. And then we go into the next step, which is now your vibration's high. You're speaking it into existence. Now it's time to listen to the nudge. Now it's time to listen to what we called inspired action. And this is the part of manifesting that I think people don't realize. It still requires effort. It still requires work. And you have to listen to the nudges that come in, because if you're doing the work to clear your mind, if you're doing the work to stay in the high vibration, and you're asking the universe to bring something to you and you're not listening to the answer, you got to listen to the answer. I went to yoga at the end of November 2018. I went to yoga. I did this incredible practice. I'm laying in Savasana and the nudge came to me, you need to sell the clinic and move on. And it was so strong and it was so there. I could have went, yeah, bullshit. Okay, that's our primary income and da-da-da-da-da. And I could have let fear and anxiety and stress and disbelief and lack creep in and not even brought that nudge to Rob. But I didn't because I was like, I just got a nudge. So I walked in the room and I said, Rob, we need to sell the clinic, right? At any rate, we at least needed to go through the decision-making matrix to see what this would look like and vet this out because I'm getting the nudge, I'm listening to the nudge, and I'm vetting it out. And so if you're trying to change your life and you're just wishing for like a passive stream of income or, an income that you can do, a side hustle that you can do from home or something like that, and then someone offers you a business opportunity, at a minimum, vet it out. You don't have to do every nudge, but you have to vet it out. And I'll tell you, this nudge business, I've gotten so fine-tuned with this that, when you walk out of the house and you look outside and it's sunny, but something says, take your umbrella. And then you disregard because you see it's sunny. And then you end up getting caught in the rain and you're like, I knew I should have taken my umbrella. Like, how many times has that happened to you? Practice listening to the nudge and doing whatever it says, because that is your internal guidance system. That is the inner voice, your higher being, or whatever you want to call it, the universe. I don't care. Start listening to the little things. Get the umbrella. If you're walking down the street and something nudges you to pick up the trash bag you see like laying on the ground and throw it away, do it. If something nudges you to take a different side street, do it. Follow those little nudges. And then when the big nudges come in, you'll be attuned to them and know what to do.
So I would wrap up with this. I think there's going to be two naysayers that are going to come into your life. The first is going to be you, and the second is going to be the critics that are out there in the world. The toughest one is going to be you, because you're going to fight for your limitations. You're going to give every reason in the world why you're not able to accomplish it. Based upon past references, I always set goals. I can't accomplish these goals. Fighting that voice is going to be your biggest challenge. I've once heard somebody say, a neurolinguistic programming person, and I've used it before and it's interesting, make that voice sound like a little mouse and pick the mouse up and put it into a jar and close the jar. And imagine on the jar, there's a volume knob. Turn the volume up so that you can hear that voice really, really loud, and then slowly turn it down till it's 0, and then just kick it off the table and throw it away. And it's like a metaphor to allow you to separate yourself from that voice. The other naysayer is going to be an actual naysayer. And there's always some dick somewhere in your world that is going to tell you why you can't have something, or is going to make some comment that is clear about why they think you can't have it. And it's a good thing, because one, it's going to test your commitment to what it is that you say you want. It's going to move you towards resolve. And the closer you move towards resolve, the more you're going to say to that person, fuck you, mind your own business, you shut your head. I don't want to hear what you have to say. And it will force you to be stronger. But generally what happens is, as you start gaining success and momentum in this, the naysayers are going to pop out, tell you why you can't have it, because you're going to be holding a mirror up to them. And it's going to make them really uncomfortable, and it's just easier for them to knock your building down to make their building look taller. All right, that's it, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody, if you've ever thought about coming to hang out with Kim and I on one of our next Rob and Kim Italia events, and you want to learn more, just click the Rob and Kim Italia link in the show notes and add your name and email, and we'll send you all the details as soon as they're available. We are obsessed with this country and how it affects you, and we want to share that magic of culture, food, wine, art, architecture, and some secret magic moments that we've cooked up with you. So be sure to add your name, because these events sell out quickly.